Hey there, what's up? It's Johnny here, and welcome to another episode of the 3C Show. And today we are getting into some more Lightroom love. And I had a question come in from one of the community, that's the team 3CX photography community. And the question was, how can I get my skies popping in Lightroom? So, how can I make them more vibrant, give them more definition, really define what's going on in my sky? And, it can be tricky because what you don't want to do is you don't want to do global adjustments, meaning you don't want to adjust something that's going to affect the whole image. You want to start to target down and just affect what's going on in the sky area. And I'm going to jump into a few things in a moment, but the way I think about my skies when I'm processing them is I think about exposure, so luminancy, lights and darks, how is it exposed? I think about color, what colors am I trying to bring out in the sky? Is there a potential color in the sky is the one I want to accentuate a bit more? And then I think about texture, clarity and texture and things like that. Do I want to bring out that so the clouds get more formation and they become more contrasty? So anyway, we're going to jump into a few little things here, and I think we'll jump over into Lightroom and take a bit of a look at a couple of examples of things that you can do. As always, guys, there's always 5 or 6 ways of doing everything. So, if you've got a slightly different way, that's okay. This is just, this is the way I do things, okay? So don't be worried if you've got a different way. So you would know about, the graduated filter. It's something that, we've used so often to bring our skies down. We use graduated filters in the field so we can pull the skies back. Now, I just want to show you something with this image. So don't forgive all the dust spots. My sensor was absolutely filthy, so I haven't really got rid of those yet in this image. This is before I took it over to Photoshop and did some cleaning up and removed this little thing here. So, but I want to show you something. If I was to bring down globally on the exposure, look at the difference in the sky. The colors start to come out. We're starting to get more definition around the clouds. It's just way nicer. But look what's happened to all the foreground and midground. It just looks totally awful, really terrible. So I'm just going to reset that there. So we're going to go with a graduated filter, okay? So I'm going to draw my graduated filter on like this, okay? But the problem we've got is, if I was to lower that exposure now, I'll just double click effects here, and that's going to reset all my sliders here in my graduated filter. If I was to bring down that exposure up there, what it's doing, it's affecting, some of my water, the top of this headland, and it isn't that nice. So if I hit the O key, that's going to show me exactly what's being affected, all right? So what's really cool in these later versions of Lightroom is you have these masking tools, and I really, really love these. So you've got color, which obviously allows you to select color, and luminance, which allows you to select the brightness or the darkness of an area. So let's just try color here. And if I grab the eyedropper tool, what I want to do is draw a box over this area like this. Let's just see what happens here. That's not too bad. You can see what's happened now. There's none of the graduated filter is affecting this area, and we're affecting a little bit into the water there, which I think is fine, because what I can do actually is I could even just bring this up just a touch here, just so it's affecting the top of the water and the horizon line. Now if I push the O key, look at the difference. There's before, that's before the radial filter. This is after, the graduated filter. I know what filter we're using. And then from here, what's cool is we can start to really color that area. So I might even just bring the exposure up just a touch there, and I'm going to bring the blue, a bit more blue tone, and I'm actually going to even add a touch more magenta, because it was a bit more magenta-y. This sky is actually looking away from the setting sun, was behind me, so you get those, there's more purpley tones, all right? And the other thing I like to do now, so now I think I've got my colors right. I think we worked on exposure, right? So we got that right by bringing down the exposure in the sky and masking out that area. Now I've worked on my colors. I've added a bit more blue and a bit more magenta. Now I just want to play around with two other sliders. Contrast is one that can often do some good things, and what it'll do, often it'll darken down these areas and lighten up the clouds, and it helps get separation between those two areas. So contrast is really good. And the other thing I love is clarity. Clarity for bringing out texture in clouds can be awesome, okay? And you can see if I go crazy, it turns into a hypercolored rainbow, which we don't want, HDR-y looking thing. You can see just by adding a little bit of clarity there, it's just helped to pull the clouds away, these magenta-y, lighter clouds away from those bluer areas. And the other thing we can do too, if we wanted to get a little bit more lightness in the clouds and the sky, we just bump those whites a little bit. So let's have a look where we come from. So that was before this graduated filter, and this is after. Look at that. Beautiful. What a difference, hey? What a difference. Now, of course, I'd have to go and clean up my spots and Photoshop this bit out, and we've got a bit of sharpening and that to do. But today we're just concentrating on skies, and you can see what a difference that has made by just adding that graduated filter. And there you go, is before and after. And it's just really changed the whole photograph. And that's why the graduated tool using the masking is just awesome. All right, I got another example here. This one's a drone shot, Tom Ree National Park, and you can see what we've got, right? So there is some funkiness up here, this banding that happened. There's a bit of lens flare that needs to be photoshopped and fixed up, but we're not concentrating on that. There's also a bit of funkiness up here in the corner that we want to fix as well. And I can see the exposure, if anything, it's probably underexposed just a touch. They are slightly smaller files, these off the drone, so you don't have as much leeway to process them. But so what I'm thinking is I want to enhance this blue area, but I also want to really bring out that light bleed or that sun. You can see that sun coming in, this exposure here, and it was a lot warmer than that when I was there, okay? So that's what I want to try and bring out. So there's a few ways we can do this. We can sometimes, what can work is that first off, if we go down here to the HSL panel, and we've got this little targeted adjustment, right? So I can grab that target adjustment, go up here to my blues, and just up the saturation. And what that's going to do, not only is it make it this slightly darker, it's going to saturate those blues, but you can see just by doing that, look at the difference in the clouds there as well. It's just brought those clouds out of that blue area, so the whites and the blues are contrasting off each other a lot more. So the HSL was really good, for targeting that bright orange area if you want to saturate it, or you've got those magentas, it's really good for that. But say you don't want to use saturation, you could just use luminance, so that's darkening down that area. In this situation, I think I would like to use, you can see I can just darken down that area, and when you darken it down, it does saturate it a touch, but not as much as the saturation, okay? So that's something to think about, between saturation and luminance, that you can do some good things. You also have hue, and hue is a bit of a funky thing. You got to be real careful with hue, but you can change the color of things, okay? So say I wanted to make the sky more purpley or more sky blue, then I could do that with hue as well. But just be very careful what you do with hue, because you can make things look funky pretty fast. All right, now we want to work on this area, this exposure coming in, and I love photographs like this. People would say, oh, Johnny, she's all blown out and it's an absolute mess, and you've overexposed this area, but you can see I've actually underexposed the whole scene, and we don't actually have any clipping anywhere up here in the highlights. If I was to let me close this radial filter for now, and this is how you check for clipping, something interesting. If I was to turn on this clipping box here, and I'm just going to move the exposure up here, you can see this area now, it's turning red, is actually blown out totally, and we've lost detail there altogether. And the same with the darks as well. If I was to bring that down, this blue area is saying, Johnny, you've underexposed it too much. So we didn't have any of that. You can see that's where the normal exposure was. We didn't have too much of that there. Now, don't be afraid if you do have some blacks in your image like this. It's not the end of the world. It's often nice to have some areas that are a little bit black in your image like that, because then things are looking good, but you're still going to have a little bit of detail there. But when you blow things out totally with the whites or the highlights, you're going to lose detail there altogether. Anyway, that was a bit off topic. Sorry about that. Anyway, let's get back to what we were doing. So this light bleeding effect, or whatever you want to call it. So the first thing I love to do is just draw a big radial filter, you know, and here's our bad boy here. I mean, you can see it's quite a large one. I want to make sure it's inverted and softened all the way out. Now, if we have a look what that's affecting, you'll see it's quite a big area, but it's a really soft edge, okay? It's a really, really soft edge, all right? So what I want to do now is I'm going to hit the O key. I'm going to make sure that everything's reset, okay? And what I want to do is I'm actually going to add some color. Okay, I'm actually going to add some sunrise color. So if I click this little box here, it brings up this picker, all right? And what I can do is moving along the top here, it's going to change the tones. You know, I can do something totally silly, which is not going to look any good at all when my computer catches up. You know, obviously you can go crazy here, so be careful with what colors you do use. But I would say start at the top, move along till you find a color that's close. My computer's just catching up there, guys. So I don't know, some reason she's struggling today. I don't know. There's nothing happening in the background. But anyway, find a color that's close to what you think, you know, you want to use in that area for your sun. You know, this is the sun coming in. It was early morning. It's probably a little bit too. It's still catching up there. And you can see this is the color we had and this is the color we're at now. And I think that's pretty good. That's pretty close to where I want it. And as I bring it down, the color, it's going to lessen the saturation of that color or the intensity of that color there. It's almost like an opacity slider, this here, which is really nice. So I'm just going to bring that back a bit. The computer's still lagging a little bit there, but that's pretty close. I can probably bring that up a touch, and I'm thinking I wanted a little touch more orange in there. Sorry guys, my computer is not playing its game today. So that's pretty close. You know, that's pretty good. If we turn that off and then on, you can see we've just added some color to that area. What I love to do with this is actually pull the clarity in reverse. And what that does, it softens out that light, softens out that area and gives a nice soft feeling to that light bleeding in from that side. I call it like a light bleed because it's like the light, you know, you're not looking at the sun, but the sun is just bleeding in there. All right, so I'm actually going to add a touch more yellow to it, just with the temperature slider there. And what I'm going to do as well is I want to get a little bit of saturation into that area because that color is coming in there and it's nice and not. Let's just let my computer catch up there. And that's pretty close. Like we don't, you know, with these sort of techniques, you can take things too far, these localized adjustments. But if you do it to zoom out now and we do a bit of before and after. So there's before of the whole image and after, before, after. And I think that's nice now. So now we've got this beautiful orange soft light coming in and, you know, beautiful from this right-hand side. And then we've got these blue tones up here. And that's just a way how you can use the radial filter and those targeted adjustments to really get that separation between those clouds there. So clarity is a really handy tool. So something else you can do too is sometimes you can paint, you know, with a bit of clarity just over your clouds. You know, just say you wanted to make these couple of clouds here pop a little bit more, then I just paint over them like that. Don't have to be two. Then I'm just going to get the clarity and just prop it up a little bit there. And it's just going to give a little bit more definition because what clarity does, it sort of does like a mid-tone contrast. So it's really cool. All right. Well, that's about it, my friends. I hope that helps. Now, remember, the way to think about your sky is first exposure. Is it exposed right? Is everything how I want it exposed? Okay. And then we're going to think about color. You know, what colors do I need to bring back and how am I going to go about that? And then lastly, I start to think about contrast and texture. All right. So that's the way I do it. Masking with the radial filter, masking with the graduated filter is a great way. Using your brush is a great way. And normally what you want to do is you want to localize. What we're trying to do is localize our adjustments just to our sky area so that when we're making those adjustments, it's not affecting our whole scene globally. We're just concentrating on those little areas. All right. Thanks again for the person who sent this in from the Team 3CX community. And if you're interested to find out more, there'll be a link below. I guarantee it's the one place that you are going to smash out learning your landscape and nature photography. I'm in there all the time critiquing images every month, creating masterclasses, and we're in there having lots lots of fun and learning photography together, which is just awesome. I just love it. All right, guys, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this little Lightroom tip. And man, you know, put some links below if you got any comments. Put some links below to some of your photos online. I'd love to see if you got when you guys use this technique in any of your photos and how you find it, or if you've got any other ideas or things you do as well to try and get your skies popping in Lightroom. I'd love to hear about that too. All right, guys. As always, I'll see you again next time on the show. All right, I'm out. Peace.